Okay, so today's conversation, I call it the career pioneer. And it's a conversation we can have when you're at that point where you kind of got a blank slate in front of you. You're not sure where to go next. And it just helps you figure out that driving force and direction, kind of like a pioneer, just figuring out where you're going to settle down. Okay, so I'm just going to share screen because I did make some graphics on this one because I've been coaching this one forever. But yeah, so that's kind of how it looks right there. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we want to be able to map out your current skills, and then we want to be able to map out everything you like in a job. Okay. And we're going to be graphing and plotting different options based on where it fits. Now, here's the thing. If we have something that's very low on your skill set and very low on what you like in a job, then that job option would fit in the dumb category quadrant. Okay. It's like, why are we doing this? Right. And that would be kind of like a pioneer that's settling down where nothing really grows. Like it's just not very good soil and everything else. Okay. Now, if you are considering a job option that's very high on your current skill set, okay, but is very low in what you like in a job, that's a seductive job option. It's seductive. So we might get tricked into it for ego or whatever, but it's not really fulfilling us, even though we're good at it. All right. And then if we take a job that's very low on your current skill set, but it's very high on all the things you like, that's considered a difficult job option. But the thing with a difficult job option is that when you add learning and experience, it can transition into becoming an ideal job option. So as our skills go up, it now becomes ideal. So that's like settling in a place that's going to grow into something good eventually. All right. So that's how this looks. So we're going to go through this conversation, and anyone that's watching the video can follow along. I think this is a really good way to kind of plot out the path forward. All right. So
awesome.
And this is applied from a coach I had. His name was Greg Winterfield. I had him coach me back in 2003 when I was brand new working. And he was coaching one of my clients who is a super successful CEO. And so I hired my client's coach. And he kind of did this with me, a kind of stripped down version of this. I kind of souped it up and made it fancy and everything else. Okay. So question number one, we want to think about
awesome.
What are all your work-related skills you've developed and acquired in past jobs? And this can be anything. It can be like writing, photography. It can be like coaching and teaching. Like it can be anything. So what are the skills you've developed and acquired in past jobs?
Well, I would for sure say like coaching and leading for sure.
Okay.
Just based on the dynamic of the job for sure. I would say in terms of, I don't know if this falls under skills, but even like being a people person, like communicating. And I would say that's one of my main skill sets is just being able to like develop a community as well.
Yeah.
And like tailor my approach to whoever I'm speaking to kind of thing. What else? And I would also say like learning wise, like I'm always willing to learn, like wanting to learn too. So if there's something I don't know, I'm usually like outsourcing and asking questions.
Mm-hmm. Great. These are all great skills. Now, any specific niche skills you have in there, like you might be like, okay, coaching this subject or this topic. It might be like, okay, coaching nutrition, coaching fitness. Like,
I would say like coaching the general population fitness, like very broad, but yeah. Majority of what I do right now too is small group. And that's where like focus has been. So I guess that could make that even more specific.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
What are school subjects that you've excelled at in the past? Let's add those to the mix here. What are the specific school subjects?
Enjoyed or did well in?
We're going to say excelled at, so did well in. And that just lets us know your natural aptitude for certain competencies, like whether it's mathematics, whether it's language, whatever it happens to be.
For sure, I would say exercise prescription.
Mm-hmm.
That one was a really solid one. We had a course like in behavior change too. Okay. So I really enjoyed that one. And I did well in it too. Great. Like health and wellness, it was all based on exercise. Like all the courses, like exercise science, everything in university was either exercise prescription, health and fitness promotion. What other course did I do good? Anatomy I didn't do good in, but I liked it.
Okay, cool. Fair.
Fair.
Okay.
Like fitness things.
And what are some hobbies and recreational activities you excel at?
Well, I would say for sure, well, like running or like would a hobby be like going to like coffee shops and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I do that a lot.
You excel at the coffee shop conversation.
I do. I truly do.
I
thrive in that. Yeah, I would just say it's exercise, like mainly exercise. I would say running's like my number one. It was always like my number one hobby for sure. And
what about travel? Is that one of your things as well?
Yeah. I love travel.
Okay, we'll put down travel. And you excel at it? You don't get lost everywhere?
I do get lost. Yeah, that's the fun part of travel. I do. Don't ever take my direction. Like when I was in Amalfi Coast, if I said right, it was usually left.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Now, any other skills or talents you would add to this list? And it could be anything. It could be like photography. It could be like social media skills. It could be any types of marketing, creative skills. Could be a musical instrument, anything at all.
Let's say like event planning.
Okay.
Social media. Yeah, I think I do pretty good in social media.
Yeah, you do.
Like,
yeah,
I enjoy that. And there was one more I thought about. I lost it. Okay, yeah, I'm good with that.
Excellent. So if I take a look at our skill sets here, we got like coaching, general fitness, small group coaching, building community, social dynamics, willingness to learn, exercise prescription, behavior change, health and wellness, running, going to coffee shop conversations, travel, event planning, social media marketing. So those are our skill sets. So that will go on the one axis of this grid. Okay. Now along the other axis, we're going to get clear on what you like in a job. All right. So the first question we're going to go on to is your ideal minimum income. And I'm just going to let you know something about this before we go there, is that they've shown that once somebody makes 70,000 a year, and now the research is a few years old on this, so who knows what it is now with inflation or whatever, but there's no real increase in happiness after about 70,000 a year in income. So yeah, so that's something interesting to think about in terms of like, but then certain people have lifestyles. So everyone's got a different answer here. But as far as what you like in a job, what do you think is your ideal minimum income per year?
Let's just base it at 60K.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to say 60K. Now, what are the values that are important to your career? Like, is it do you have the value of giving back and being of service? Promoting positive lifestyle? Do you have a value of generosity of spirit? So what are some of the things that are important to you that you want to live out through your career?
I would say like I enjoy, or one of my values is like enabling others or empowering them, like just to see their potential. So yeah, I guess that's a way of giving back. Like you said, giving back, right?
Yeah. I love that. I think that's awesome. Empowering
Yeah.
other and helping people build resilience.
Yeah, for sure.
Another one of yours, I think, too, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. Those are good because we want to make sure that whatever you do for a career, ideally, it matches up with the virtues that you are here to be an example of and serve, right? For me, one of my big things is just making people feel like they matter.
Yeah.
It seems simple and stuff, but I'm just like, I just want strangers to know they matter. I just want other people to know they matter because they do. And I think we don't hear it enough,
So true. So true.
Excellent.
Another like value. Well, I would say that's my main thing. Like it doesn't really matter. I used to think it really mattered like what exactly I did, but in the grand scheme of things, that's really just what I'm driven by.
Excellent. Yeah. Good point. Okay. Now, what's the general work amount that you like? Do you need like low part-time work? Do you need it to be medium or a high amount or any preference at all?
I've realized that I function better with like 2 part-times than I would a one full-time. So I guess part-time would be the answer to that one.
Okay. So low amount of lower part-time on the work. This is all ideal. We can, it doesn't mean you're committing to anything. What about location-wise? Home, close to home, specific geographic area? What would you say here?
Close to home's ideal, just in terms of time and such.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What about flexibility of work hours? Do you need a lot, moderate, or no flexibility?
Yeah, this one's a really big one for me. Flexibility, like I need it for sure.
Okay.
I like it. I guess I got used to the personal training side of things where there's flexibility. So I really enjoy that.
Yeah, so do I. I just, I enjoyed a lot too. Not that I have to have it. I've had jobs where I haven't, but I do enjoy it now. Now, here's an interesting one. We need to break it down to the type of challenge. Sometimes there's jobs that are physically demanding and challenging, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're working doing the garbage truck, working for the municipality, right?
Right.
Tossing the garbage in, like that's physically demanding. You're going to need some core strength and back health for that, right?
Yes.
Some are very mentally demanding, right? Mentally demanding. Some are very technically demanding, right? And some are very socially demanding. What types of challenge do you prefer most?
When you say mentally demanding, what do you mean?
It could be like different types of problem solving, like even math related equations and stuff like that you're trying to figure out, and could be anything along those lines. Yeah.
My preferred type of challenge, I think, can I say like education wise, like just like learning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd put that under mental. Yeah, learning.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Mental.
Okay. And now the next one is preferred job variety. Do you need lots of variety, moderate variety, low variety? Low variety might be like, you're working at on an assembly line at a factory and you have one specific type of job you're responsible for, and it's the same day in, day out. Anytime you're working with different populations, there's always lots of variety. If it's the same group that you're working with, it might be moderate. So
let's say moderate variety.
Okay. Now, the next one is the quality of boss. Here, this is such an interesting one because sometimes I have found that with people I've coached, sometimes their boss is so good and lifts them up so much and makes them a better person so much that the work itself is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But a good boss can really compensate for just what kind of work it is you're doing. It can be some sort of menial physical job, but it doesn't really matter because it's who you're with, right? And then other times I found that people had like the best job ever, but they just had a boss that was a nightmare and they couldn't stand the job. And they're like, no, it's important to me. I cannot stand having a boss that's just a selfish, infantile tyrant or whatever, right? So it's like, we need to get clear on how picky do you need to be on your boss?
I would say it's medium priority.
Okay. Excellent. Now, the next question we're going to get into here is work atmosphere. Do you like to be independent? Do you like to be a member of a team, small company, big company, indoors, outdoors, home? What if you had to, like if a genie came out of a bottle and was just granting you wishes, what would you pick here?
I would say small community.
Okay, and then growth and development. So this is how much growth and development you have in your job. It sounds like this is a high opportunity need because you are preferring the type of mental learning challenge, right? But
yeah, I would say so.
okay, so we're just going to say high opportunity for growth and development. All right, and then future upside. Just now, future upside is just kind of saying like, is this a company you can grow with, and they're growing, and you can become part of that growth journey and work your way up as they progress, or is that not really important to you? You just need more of a stepping stone job for now, like not really looking at who to commit to long term. Like the future upside, how important is that to you?
I would say high need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Excellent.
Yeah, I would say responsible, like not responsible, but have that growth opportunity. I feel like that's really big.
Excellent. So now we have our information. We can always add to it later.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Now we would want to take, I'm going to throw some job options out there, and this is going to help you get clarity. Okay.
Okay.
So let's go into considering a job for a computer programmer. Okay.
Mhm.
Computer programmer has nothing that you're good at, really. Like all of yours are more like physical exercise and community-based skills, nothing you're good at. Okay. So it's very low on your current skills. Now, it also pays, 45 grand a year. You're facing a computer screen. You're not helping other people see their potential, or you're not helping people build resilience. The hours are very strict. Like it's like, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, full-time hours. Okay. Not part-time. It's an hour long away commute. All right. And yeah, there's not, your boss is a, kind of non-factor. They're not really inspiring. They're not terrible, but they're not really inspiring. And it's a huge community. You'll be a part of a huge company and you'll just be one tiny number. Okay. So if we were to plot that job option, we might say it's low in your skills, right? Is
right.
How does it score in terms of what you like in a job? Is that low or
Low.
high?
Yeah, low.
Okay, so that is a dumb option for you. Okay, so you can see any jobs that are low on skills and low on the qualities you like are considered dumb. It's like a pioneer settling in a barren plot of land.
Yep.
Okay, now we're going to talk about being a group fitness and event coordinator for a company. Okay, that's your next option. So you're going to have to build the community. You're going to be part of a small team for a company that has set up in some far off country. Okay. And it's going to involve a little bit of, traveling, a little bit of event planning, coaching, behavior change, exercise prescription, building community, small group coaching. It's going to involve a lot of those things. However, it's going to pay you the equivalent of about 35 grand a year. All right. It's going to be from about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
Right now. So it's going to be like full time, no flexibility. You're going to get 2 weeks off a year and that's it. It's going to be very far from home. Like you'll have to take a plane to get there. Right.
Okay. Are you paying for this plane ride or?
Yeah. And there's going to be the boss is known to be quite arrogant and selfish and temperamental. Okay. And so, where would we say this option is at in regards to your current skills? Is it low or high in your current skill set? Okay, good. So it's up here. Now, what about what you like in a job? What you like in a job when we consider like the hours, the flexibility, the type of boss, the annual income, is it low or high in what you like in a job?
Low.
Okay. So that would be a seductive job choice. You might be really good at it, but you're compromising a lot of things that are very important to you for job fulfillment. This is where a lot of people get confused. They fall into that trap, right? So it's like a scenic plot of land, but the land doesn't produce enough to keep you happy. It's a good ego boost, but it comes with compromise.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
That does, yeah.
All right. Now, let's consider another type of job. Do you have any other options that you're just thinking about that are floating around out there that we can start to plot?
Well, like working in like a wellness center, like as like, let's say a physiotherapy assistant or whatnot. That's usually the title it goes under.
Okay, good. So we'll say like an assistant in a therapy clinic.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So thinking about the types of things you'd be doing, right? You'd be coaching, you'd be giving some exercise prescription. There'd probably be a lot of willingness to learn because you'd have somebody mentoring you and coaching you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of social dynamics. They might want you involved building some sort of community events, like maybe on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, getting people involved, getting them together for whether it was, physical or mental resilience or empowerment sessions, maybe. Maybe you lead a running group in the community that meets up at the clinic. Who knows? So,
yeah.
But the point is, if you're an assistant, then it's on them to kind of coach and teach you, and you just have to learn, right?
Right.
So where would we score that for skills you're good at? High or low?
I would say high.
Yeah, I would say high, sure, for sure. Okay, now here's where it can get tricky. Now we have to think about what you like in a job, because it could go a lot of different ways here, right? It could go a lot of different ways. All right, so let's say you're going to make $60K a year. Let's say that this facility is, about 7 minutes down the road. Okay. And they've kind of they kind of want you there 6 hours a day. Maybe 6 hours in the morning or whatever. And, but the company's growing. They're like, hey, we're opening up a couple different locations, but we're planning on in the next 5 years, we're going to be opening up 15 locations across Ontario. Right. And we're going to want you to learn different skills as you do, because we might have you training the other assistants down the road. We might have you running educational seminars for the company, or as the company grows, we might have you organizing some events for everybody, maybe even some retreats. We might get you to plan, we'll all travel to some, cabin resort and do some outdoor retreats with education and team building and stuff. And we think you might be a good candidate to head that up. And the boss is inspiring. The boss is, always one of these people who sees the best in you, right? And they're always coaching you and kind of helping nurture your development. And they have very high values as well. They're very much all about being focused on the welfare of other people. And they look at their leadership as a privilege, and an opportunity to serve rather than something that's an entitlement and a trumpet call to their own self-importance, as other bosses maybe that you've had in the past, right? So if that's the situation, where would this job fit?
Well, it would be, I guess, in the ideal, because it's high in what I like in a job, and it's also high in current skill set.
Yeah, there you go. So that's an ideal job option. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of like, hey, we should settle down here. Now, it's also possible, and it's also possible that something like that might not exist right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's possible that, you might have a job. Let's say you might have a job that pays, let's say, $65K a year. Okay. And it's going to be sort of like an outdoor education instructor, like outdoor physical recreation instructor.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a lot to do with coaching on sustainability and environmental health and interacting with nature, right? And it's going to be like part-time, it's going to be like, a lot of times it's just going to be events and weekends and pretty flexible, lots of mental learning involved. Okay. Because you're going to have to learn all these skills. The company is growing. Sort of they're creating these outdoor experiences and stuff where people connect with nature and, learn to just live in harmony with nature, simply. And there's a fair amount of variety because you're going to be in a bunch of different natural settings, and the boss is great and you're part of a small community of people that are doing this but it's completely new to you. Like you didn't go to school for anything related to the environment or anything like that and nature. And I don't even know if you know how to set up a tent or to put it back in the bag when it's done. Have you ever noticed that? It's easy to take a tent out, but you try to put a tent back in the tent bag and it's like, how did this thing even fit in here? Right?
It never same. Yeah. For me, at least.
and like portaging and canoeing. And these are all different physical skills that you might not have. Right. You might have to do some different camping excursions as a part of this, and you're running different excursions, but it's all kind of new. Okay.
Yeah.
Where would that option fit?
I guess in the difficult, because it's low in my current skill set and high in what I like in a job.
Yeah. So that might be in the difficult category.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, but as you get better, it could become an ideal job. Right. And so that's why we want to keep an eye out for things like that, because, it's like, as you develop and you develop your competency, this becomes an ideal job. Like, 3 or 4 years from now, you could just be loving this. You could be like, oh my gosh, I love this. I get to be outside. I'm meeting with groups of people, who are, from all over the place, and they just want like a Canadian wilderness experience or something. And I'm coaching them, and we're being physically active, and we're traveling through things, and we're learning how to live off the land or whatever. Right. So that's a difficult job option, which is important to consider as well. Right. Like, because a lot of it is what you like in a job. You're empowering people to see their potential, to thrive when the circumstances might be discouraging or new, right? You're helping them build resilience, right? By running excursions. So this is showing some of the different dynamics of how we can kind of compare and contrast our current skill set with what we like in a job, right? So an example of that was one time I took somebody through this and they really liked like cooking, and they really liked photography and art. And what we did was we realized that one of the ideal job options for them, and they really liked entrepreneurship. We realized that one of the ideal job options for them might be to open up their own little restaurant and just showcase all of their art and photography, right? Like,
wow, yeah.
Once they started to think about that, they got really excited. They're like, that's something I'm going to work towards now. I'd love to be able to do that. But doing this helped them to see those connections.
Right. Yeah.
And if they didn't have the qualities that would make them good for entrepreneurship, we wouldn't have said that. We would have been like, oh no, this is not going to be, this is going to be a real challenge for you. Like, it's going to be very difficult, right? So,
and this worksheet's good too, because I think when it's down on paper, or if it's like just in your head and you don't articulate it, it's harder to draw those connections, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it helps us get clear on it. So we want to think, if you're currently in a dumb or seductive job, why? Right?
Yeah.
We want to know about that. And perhaps it's like, fear of debt, fear of failure. Perhaps it's like, especially with seductive job options, fear of failure. Perhaps it's just a pandemic transition thing, and we're just doing something to make ends meet. Who knows, right?
Right.
We also want to consider, what fields of work are you interested in? Here's a bunch to consider. Okay. So we want to consider stuff like the entertainment industry, right? Like maybe that's a field to consider, maybe the food and beverage industry is a field to consider, maybe self-development is a field to consider, travel industry,
right?
Okay. The training industry, like you might be want to consider being a corporate trainer, where you get to travel and you get to meet with teams from different companies and coach them through different resilience techniques, both mentally and physically. And, maybe you get them outside of their comfort zone, doing some early morning runs and stuff like that. Maybe the charity, maybe working for a charity or a humanitarian industry, maybe sports and recreation. Hospice, working with people that are transitioning at the end of their life, maybe an environmental company, a tech company, if that excites you, politics, coaching, songwriting and performance, video production. These are all things to consider. So I consider from a whole list of those types of things, right? Like you might find doing video production for a marketing company, and you're running small groups and, maybe doing social media is one of your skills, but right now you're not very high on many of the skills needed, but it's a really fun company. It pays well. And it's, you might find that could be a difficult job option that could become ideal. We don't know, right? Okay. So there's so many underdeveloped sides of ourselves, right? Yeah. We all have so much more potential than we can actualize in this lifetime. We're not limited by our potential. We're limited by our time to develop that infinite potential, right? Because you could have many flourishing careers in many of these different jobs and industries, but you're just only limited by your time, right? Sure. So what I would say is figure out those industries. So if you were to think about any of those industries I mentioned, did anything stick out for you that's kind of interesting or intriguing at all?
Well, I would say like you said food and beverage industry. I've always like kind of considered like even getting into like the coffee shops and things like that, or having, because you could have a local coffee shop kind of run these health and wellness events. Even like corporate training. So being responsible for like the health and wellness of like employees and making sure that there's like resources available. Like I've considered that as well.
Yeah, nice.
But another thing that's always kind of crossed my mind, because I do like travel and I do the health and wellness side of things, and sustainability is always like a big one for me. But
Mhm.
even just like running retreats or being like a part of some of those, I think that would be so awesome.
Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect. So at this
Yeah.
point, and those are all great options to consider.
Yeah.
And and it's really funny because I remember like someone I know, they were really
Yeah.
into music and they were really into travel. And they ended up getting a job with a company where they got to oversee bringing in famous musicians to poor countries to help these poor communities. So they'd travel to these poor countries, bring famous musicians, and then just sing and dance with these like communities of people from
Oh,
these
that's beautiful.
impoverished parts of the world. And it was just like, wow, this is such a crazy combination of these skills you have
Yeah.
and such an adventurous type of job, right?
I love that.
Yeah. Now, here's what I would ask next. Thinking of some of those industries, do you know, yes or no, do you know people that work within those industries? And is it possible you can reach out to them just to understand more?
Yes. I definitely think it's possible for sure. I do know some people in each of those industries.
So I'd say that's now your driving force and direction is just to seek first to understand. Just understand a little bit more about people that are in there. Hey, can you tell me a little bit about this? What do you like about this kind of job and work? And, if I was to consider it at some point, where would I begin and what would I need to do to prepare myself? And just get some intel,
Okay.
right? And what are the types of positions in those fields? You know, could you let me know? Like maybe there's a manager position, a director, an entrepreneur, a service technician, a consultant. Like, what are the different positions available? Right. And maybe are there any options available right now that might be a good fit for me? Or maybe I can make myself a good fit, or maybe I can volunteer or job shadow and get some experience. I'm willing to just get everybody coffees. I like being in coffee shops. I'll just get people coffees all day long.
I'd be good. I'd be good at that.
It was really funny because I remember one time um, someone I know was interested in music production.
Yeah.
And then someone else I know was working in that industry. And the one working in the industry said this: don't bother paying for an education in this. What you should do is give your money to people at a studio, tell them you will give them money and buy them coffees and have them teach you on the front lines how to do this job in the real world.
Wow.
And it was like, that's profound. Because if that's the way the world works, if what they're teaching you in school doesn't transition into real life and isn't keeping current with the times,
Mm-hmm.
and if you were to show up and just say, I was going to pay X many thousand for, a college degree in this, but instead I want to pay you just to be able to have me hang out and just coach me and show me the ropes. Think about think about who they're going to want to hire next when there's
Yeah.
an opportunity. Are they going to want to hire somebody who paid for the cookie cutter education? Or are they going to want to hire somebody that had that initiative and that courage and that ingenuity and creativity to be able to make a path for themselves, right?
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So we want to be able to make a plan to just reach out to some of those people and get some. And then one of the things you want to get from them is you want to know, like, what skills can I develop? What wisdom and experience can I gain that might help me in this area? I would ask them that question. I'd make that one of the key questions. Like, what do I need to do? They might be like, hey, look, you should just take a small course on like design thinking, right? Because this is a big subject we talk about. Or maybe sign up for Toastmasters and get practice at public speaking, because you're going to be speaking a lot and you're going to be speaking alongside some people who are pretty good at this. I've been doing it for a long time, right? Or they might say, we want you to take a course specific to the TikTok platform and social media, because that's where we're moving into that space next. We need somebody who's a specialist at that platform, or maybe a YouTube specialist. Like, they might be able to give you some specific direction
Yeah.
in terms of how you can sort of mold your development. And we also might want to research, what are the potentially ideal jobs at the moment? Like, if you were really into snowboarding and teaching and stuff, you might be like, look, I could be a snowboard instructor in Italy or something, or Germany. Like, maybe that's a really cool job because I like travel and I want to just have that adventurous experience. Maybe I can look that up, right? Or maybe there's a job working as an assistant for a pro sports team somewhere, right? A training assistant and stuff. Like, you can start to research different organizations and just see what's out there.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So another thing, here's a question that scares most people. Okay. So buckle your seatbelt. All right. But is it possible you can create an ideal job opportunity or career?
Of course.
And if so, how might you do that? Like, let's say you're on some sort of a game show or reality show, and they're like, okay, Monica, we figured out your dream job. Now you have to create it. You have 1 week to do it. Where would you begin?
Well, I would definitely say, like, network wise, like outsourcing. Let's say, for example, I'll give an example. If I could think off the top of my head of, like, let's say I wanted to build retreats, I would start by reaching out to people who already do that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. You could start by reaching out and maybe begin your learning journey.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and you could also think about, some questions to think about if you're struggling with this. Some good prompter questions could be like, if you had only a few months to live, how would you use the time? If a significant sum of money came your way, how would you spend it? What work would you do?
Yeah.
You might decide that you just want to be a coffee shop coach.
Yep.
You're like, all I do is I hang out in coffee shops. People come in, they meet me there. I sit by the fireplace, my espresso, and then we just go into resilience conversation. I've done that, by the way. I've done coffee shop coaching prior to lockdowns and everything else, and loved it. It was always great. Like, it's just a very enriching experience and memorable, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, if I'm doing mental toughness or life coaching with somebody, I'll meet with them in a coffee shop, if it's not, provided it's not too heavy of a subject, right?
Right.
Then it's a good, fun atmosphere to be in, and it doesn't feel like work at all. It just feels like hanging out.
Yeah.
Another thing you could think about is this. Okay. First of all, how can you create an ideal job option? How could you do this to benefit others so they'd want to invest in it? So you might want to think about creating some sort of a movement, a paradigm shift, or some sort of lucrative business model. You might be like, okay, well, right now humanity is really divided. So we want to put together some sort of a retreat that helps people connect better with their bodies and positive thinking, but more importantly, creates that sense of common humanity, that we're like a one world family. Like, that's the idea behind these retreats. It's like a one world family. We're going to bring in people from all different countries and stuff like that. We're all going to hang out at these cabins in the woods, and we're going to learn survival skills, and we're going to hang out together and share stories around the campfire. And we feel like, and then everyone goes back to their part of the world, but now they feel that sense of connection and commonality with people from all over the world. And that's a shift that needs to happen for us to be in greater harmony on this spaceship we call Earth, right?
I love it.
Yeah. So we might think about, how can we create some sort of compelling purpose behind this?
Yeah.
That might leave a legacy. And we might be like, and you have the opportunity to make this happen, because we need somebody like you to invest in this and get involved. We need your coaching, your guidance, your commitment, and any of the financial resources you have to get the ball rolling, and connections. And this is a wise and this is a worthy cause. And we're sure you can agree why. Or it might be like, hey, Right now we've got a terrible situation going on in the world with just, we're treating wildlife and the natural environment as something we can just use and abuse. And we want to culture the next generation to really respect and love nature. And so we want to bring in like young people from all over the world. We want to bring them out into, out into natural settings and get them to like bond and connect with some of the wild animals and nature and have these really touching experiences. And we want to just coach people on how to fall in love with nature. And that's what we want to do. And we're going to bring people together on retreats just to fall in love with nature. Because then when they're later on, when they're sitting at an executive meeting and stuff, and they're making decisions that require profit and nature, they will value nature higher, because that's what we want to give people, those reference experiences, so we can actually protect and take better care and be a better steward of this earth. And we think retreat experiences are the way to do that and to create that shift in priorities, right? So you might want to, that could be some things to think about, right? I'm just making stuff up off the top of my head, but
no,
trying to make stuff up that could create that shift in consciousness, could be that hook for something like this that could get other people to want to participate in it.
Right.
And then we want to think about, how could you do it to reach a multitude of people? Could you have some sort of internet group that gets people started and networked, and an internet support group and training and development programs, and maybe train other people to do this, to set up these experiences, and you create a big team of people somehow, and you're just kind of like the mothership, but other people are starting these up in other countries, right? And then we want to ask, how can you do it intelligently so that it's profitable? Because at some point you have to make money and to be able to do it long term, right? Assuming.
Exactly.
So so that's anyway how we want to think about putting together some action steps to move forward is what we want to think about. Okay. And then there's actually like this really cool process. We can go into it another time, but it's basically how you score your different options with a number. Okay. And it's basically like this. It is basically that we would take a decision statement. Okay. We're using a logic-driven process to compare options. We could take a decision statement. I got to decide which job to choose next. All right. We might have 3 options and we got to compare them because we don't really know what one we want. So we're going to score each objective 1 to 10. So annual salary of 70K, that's a 10 out of 10. That has to happen. Okay. Job variety is an 8 out of 10. It's like, we really kind of like it, but we're willing to give some. Quality of boss is a 7 out of 10 priority. Location, we score as a 5 out of 10. Future upside is a 4 out of 10. Okay. So you see what I did there?
Yeah.
The objective, we're giving each objective a score, and then we rate each one. So let's say chiropractor at Crack House Chiro Clinic, whatever, right? It pays over 70K. So we give it a 10 there. Okay. It's a 7 out of 10 on job variety. Like, you have some repeat clients, some new ones. It's a 5 out of 10 on quality of boss. Okay. It's a 6 out of 10 on location. Let's say it's like, 20 minutes away. Future upside is a 7 out of 10. Like, the company's got a couple locations. They might expand to like 3 or 4 more in the next 8 to 10 years. So we multiply it by our scores here that we have evaluated, and we get a total score of 249, right? But we're doing it in a very transparent, clear, logic-driven way.
Right.
All right. Well, let's say you compare that to being, a massage therapist at Piggly Wiggly's, which I believe is a grocery store or something. Anyway.
No way.
Sounds ridiculous, but let's say it's only going to pay like, 35K. So we give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
On salary. That gives it 50 points, 10 times 5. Job variety is a 7 out of 10 again. Like, some repeat, some new. 8 times 7 is 56, right? The boss is amazing. Like, the boss is like the funniest, smartest, nicest person ever. So we're going to give the boss a 10 out of 10. So quality of boss is worth 7. So 7 times 10 equals 70 points on that. Location is like 10 minutes away, very close. So we're going to give it an 8 out of 10 for location. So 5 times 8 is 40. Future upside is meh, might be a little bit, not really likely. The company's been around a long time, right? So 4 times 60 equals 240. So you see how we take different job options and we can kind of just take what are our ask list and how important is each ask, and then score each of the options by it.
Yeah.
That can be a good like logic driven process for this.
Okay.
Okay. So you can kind of fill this out on the back. You can kind of put what are your wants? How important is that want? And where does this option fit? And you can fill something like that out.
Cool.
Right? And compare different options when it gets to that point. You know, because I think a lot of times with career, it's kind of like aiming a telescope into outer space. Like a shift of 1 millimeter can drastically, by light years, change the end destination for your soul's progress and everything else, right? Like it's like, so we want to, that, if you're watching this video or anyone who's considering this stuff, like it's a very important thing to take serious, is where you're going to journey next. Because wherever you journey, there's going to be different life lessons and experiences for you. So we want to make sure that we're doing what's best for you at this moment. And this is a very clear way to do it. Career pioneer.
Love it.
So, so we can take, and I think when my coach, Greg, back in 2003 taught me this, he just kind of drew it in pen and kept it simple. And he's like, just do this. And I was like, okay. And then I came up with all these questions and charts and everything over the 19 years since I learned this, but I've always used it, right? It's a very valuable skill. So now I'm passing it on to you. But yeah, I found a lot of people have got a lot of good clarity on it. They're like, okay, now I know where to focus. Now I know where, as a pioneer, I'm going to try settling in this territory here. I'm going to get some information before I settle here, talk to these people who have settled here, see what I need to do to prepare myself. And that can give us sort of that driving force.
I love that.
Okay, key takeaways from today's conversation.
Well, I would say the main takeaway is just like getting clear on like what's like your main, not priorities, what's the right word, like what's important to you in your job, like considering things like location and commitment in terms of like how much time, or if part-time works for you or full-time, like just getting clear on those variables of the career, and which ones kind of are the most important. But even in terms of the quadrants, like, having an understanding of like what your skill set is and ranking it on that scale versus like how attractive the job is, I think is important too, because I know I've been in the shoes before where it's like, it's really high on, let's say, being attractive, but it's low on my skill set. And I quickly realized I'm like, this isn't going to work in terms of being fulfilled, right? Like, but I didn't take the extra time to really consider it and map this out and think about it. It was kind of like more on impulse. So
yeah, you kind of, because sometimes unless you map it out, you can get deceived. And I know of one example of, there was a place that had a great facility. Okay. They had like a poutine bar. They had a mini putting course. They had all this, the gym, they had everything. So when they take you through a tour, it looks so attractive. However, nobody really takes advantage of the facility because they work you to the bone. It's a sales position and you're doing calls nonstop. And they want to have food there only because they don't want you going home, because it's very commission based. So they want you there for 12 hours a day. So when you go through for your job interview, you think, what, you guys got a mini putting course, you got all this free food for us and everything else, but you're going to work me to the bone? Like what? Right. So what I had heard was that it was, a lot of people were very disillusioned once they started the job, because they were looking at a few frills they like with the job, but they were overlooking like the demand, the job demands and the nature of the work. They kind of got, they kind of got blindsided and they overlooked some of those greater realities of the job environment, right?
Yeah.
So that can be an experience we don't have to learn the hard way if we
Yeah.
take time to plan it out. Yeah, so you're right.
That's-
This is a process to go through to get clarity and direction for career priorities, right?
Yes.
It's a very clear process. Perfect. Excellent. So that's something to just sit down and map that out, and then you can plan your next steps. I think you've got some next steps, right? You're going to reach out to some of the people in those industries and ask some questions and do some research and be able to figure out your path forward next, right?
Yeah.
And then we've got a list of all the things that, you know, all the things you're good at, all the things you like. So you can always add to that list.
Okay.
But then, you know, once you write it in, then at least you've got that clarity.
Yeah.
Once you've got it typed up.
I'm going to just save that.
Yeah, perfect. Just save that. And yeah, so thanks for being a part of this conversation. For anyone out there that might be watching this and might need this right now, we're doing this obviously just as a gesture of love and care for strangers, as part of the whole one world family idea. You know, just that commonality of the human experience and helping each other out as best we can. And we're here just to be a friend to everybody, right? So
You got it.
we're all in this together, just figuring out how to make the best of this human experience. Let's do go team on 3 and then we're out. Okay, ready?
Okay, thank you.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go team.
Go. Thanks, Brendan.
All right, take care.